Welcome to The Growth Agenda, a podcast by asgard.AI, a growth AI platform built for modern CPG leaders. My name is Tarun, Kataria, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Asper.
And I'm Dipita, Chakraborty, Strategic Advisor at Asper. Together, we are here to explore what it really takes to drive sustainable and profitable growth in today's fast-moving consumer landscape.
At Asper, we work closely with commercial teams across the globe, helping them make smarter decisions across pricing, promotions, assortment, and mix. This podcast is an extension of those conversations. Every month, we will bring you candid, insights-rich discussions with industry leaders, practitioners, and experts, diving deep into RGM and how it's evolving in a world that demands faster, more precise decision-making. From real-world challenges to breakthrough ideas, from adoption hurdles to AI-driven transformation, we will unpack what's working, what's not, and what's next. So whether you are in sales, category, finance, or RGM, this is your space to think sharper, act faster, and unlock growth. Let's get started. Welcome back to The Growth Agenda. And joining us again is Aditya Sehgal, Addy, operator, founder, advisor, and one of the sharpest system thinkers in the space. In our first inaugural episode, we unpacked why trade spend continues to be under-optimized and why it continues to dominate the P&L while still not delivering the results, having fragmented ownership to reactive planning and challenges in measuring ROI. Today, in part 2, we want to move from diagnosis to direction. We want to explore what future of commercial planning and decisioning could look like. How can AI begin to reshape commercial growth? And what organizations need to fundamentally rethink to unlock value at scale? Welcome, Addy.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Addy.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back.
Yeah. The first session, we talked about it being a masterclass in the overall questions, and today will be a deep masterclass. I hope the listeners and viewers will really enjoy this part. We are going to get deep down and dirty into a couple of issues. And of course, the podcast is about growth and RGM. And so that's where we begin. If you look across companies, we do often see RGM transformations being an AI bolt-on, analytics bolt-on on top of what exists today in terms of processes. So there is legacy thinking and AI topper like a cake. Let's try to unpack that and say, if I were to think differently, if I were to challenge the legacy, if I were to think about it as AI first and think of an RGM transformation that truly drives growth for the business as a self-perpetuating engine, let's say, where would you begin? And how should we approach that with maybe one of your frameworks?
That's actually quite a challenging question because organizations are complex and there are different things happening at different levels. So I'd like to unpick it with two frameworks. And the first framework is not directly concerned to RGM, but this is more about the life of a consumer's journey. So let's think about the consumer's journey from the perspective of a CPG company. So what happens is that there is this framework called IDA, awareness, intention, desire, action. So when a consumer is buying your brand, they are going down those four pathways. First, they are building awareness. Then over time, they build some intention. Then they build some desire. And eventually there is action. Historically, what used to happen is that all of these things were driven in different media. So awareness was driven through TV or YouTube or Facebook. Then intention was driven through people remembering a brand, hearing it multiple times, multiple exposures that builds memory structures in the brain. But then also if they're interested, researching in that area, maybe going and doing some search. And desire comes as a result of all of this, or desire comes from the result of seeing somebody else using the brand. And then eventually there is action. And for action, you will log onto a website and order, or you will go to a particular store and you will buy, or you will join a wait list. Each of these things are discrete activities, which take a lot of time and intentionality. Now, anybody who's optimized an e-commerce page will tell you that every time you require a consumer to click on a button, 99% of them are going to drop off. If you take them to a website and your call to action, what you want to do is hidden on the second page, 99% of them will drop out and never get to the second page. So what this means is that if you have 10,000 people come to your website, only 100 of them approximately, let's say 100 people will get to page 2. If your click is on page 3, then only one person gets to page 3 and 1/100th of a person will click. So on a website itself, if there is so much friction, can you imagine how much friction there is in the real world where you have to do these sequential tasks again and again to get to an eventual purchase occasion. So this is why CPG companies historically have had to do advertising where you reach millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, 20 times in a month, over 20 years, and you are reaching people all the time. That is why you have to be available at arm's reach of desire, like Coke wants to be available everywhere. And the costs of doing this are massive. And historically, this was the big moat of the companies. But now consider what happens. And I'm going to give you an example from China, also the US now. You have a TikTok store. Consumers never heard of a brand. They come onto your store, your TikTok video. There's an influencer talking about your video in some fashion. Now they've built awareness because they've seen your brand. They've built intention and they built desire because that influencer is showing them something they like. And they've built action. It's a single click. So it's a single click purchase from a video. It's a shoppable video. I've seen large scale stores where you have conversion rates from traffic of 15, 20, 30%. What's happening here is that you have a single click to purchase. Now, take one step back. Go to Amazon. In Amazon, now you have Amazon Media also. So Amazon, you typically will go to a category page, then you'll have go to product page, and there's a second click. So there's maybe a 2 or 3 clicks to conversion. And let's say that is a 10, 15% conversion rate. Then you go to a D2C website. Now the consumer journey starts with seeing an ad on YouTube, clicking through, 100th of people will click through. Then they go to a website and then they have a second click and the third click on page 3. You'll get at best a 1 to 2% conversion of the number of people you originally started with. And then when you're thinking about retail, where the number of clicks are, you first have an ad. Let's call it a click. Then you have to remember that that's another click. Then you have to make a trip to a store. That's a third click. Then you have to go to the particular aisle. That's a fourth click. Then you have to pick up the product. That's a fifth click. Then the number of clicks is massive and your conversion is like 0.005%. So what's happening is a lot of digital native brands are actually operating now at this 15-20% conversion of all traffic that comes to them. Imagine everybody who sees your ad, 15% of those people can buy. Yeah, so you can see that on something like TikTok, you may get a 15, 20, 30% conversion just with a single click. So a lot of what we are talking about from an RGM perspective is in the future is going to move into a world where your retail spends, your marketing spends are going to kind of merge and become retail media, which then is going to drive people to click. But also who your customer is changes, because historically your customer was Amazon. Today your customer is TikTok, and TikTok is a media company. Tomorrow your customer will be YouTube or Facebook because they will have stores, which will be as big as perhaps an Amazon. So if you think about China, for example, now you have a world today where your TikTok store for many brands is bigger than the Alibaba store, which is like the equivalent of Amazon, right? So this is a world where your Facebook store may be bigger than your Amazon store. In this kind of world, when you think about RGM, you are optimizing not only your trade variables, but you're optimizing all these variables. You're optimizing your media, you're optimizing all of this. So the ability of companies to do this is going to become more and more and more critical. And so there are two components to this part of the story, which is first, you need to engineer how many clicks a consumer has, how many moments of truth. We used to have a statement that says the 0th moment of truth is on the shelf, right? Or the packaging. So you need to count and minimize the number of clicks and the amount of friction, make each of them easy, build them all on one framework which has data flowing from left to right across all of the clicks that you have. And then you have an AI engine which is continuously optimizing it. When you do that, you will build a machine where you put money on one side and you get multiples of the money on the other side. And you can do this. It's like a perpetual motion machine. And I know a number of people who are doing these kinds of things in this new age media. Now, if we take it back to an existing company, you are an existing, you're working in Unilever or P&G or Reckitt or someone like that, and you're talking to Walmart. How can you actually take this learning and put it into Walmart? And the answer is that over a period of time, people like Walmart or Amazon are also building, they're also smart. They are also going to figure this out. So they will also have ways to reach their consumer. And you need to find a way where your performance marketing that you use there actually converts, does not just the performance marketing job, but also the brand marketing job. It also drives the desire and the action. And if you can do that well, then your RGM challenge actually becomes much easier because they will give you the data. But in the short term, maybe the data is more difficult to get for those kind of customers.
So this is where I think retail media is playing a very large part. This is also where I think the amount of data, for example, Walmart captures about their shoppers may be partially viewable to the suppliers and may not be. But that's where I think the collaboration starts. If you really want to follow what you call so-called clicks, to tap into or collaborate with a brick and mortar retailer who has that data capture. And do you see that happening now? Do you see that happening maybe a couple years down in the future? How near are we to this?
So I think there there is movement in that direction in general. But for every company now, you operate in a multi-channel business, right? So you have channels which are owned channels, like your direct to consumer. You also have channels like TikTok stores. You have all kinds of media channels as well. And depending on which country you are in and how advanced shopping is on those channels, you may or may not have extensive shopping businesses already built on your media channels. So what you want to do, first of all, is be a good partner to your retailer. And with your retailer, you want to move forward together into the future. So how do you do this? Well, first of all, you need to build the insights of how this works for your brand. And to do that, first, you can generate all of this information and this data on your own channels. So, for example, if you have a TikTok, account and you're actually delivering significant sales there, you actually build the knowledge and awareness. You build your RGM engine on D2C and your own channels. You can control your rules. You can test whatever you want here. Once you have that, you can prove you have the hard data, you have better ROI, you have fewer bad promotions, and basically you have real evidence. Then you can take this to your large retailer. And in many cases, those insights turn into hypothesis, which you will test along with the retailer for a win-win partnership, which has better outcomes where, hopefully the revenue goes up at a lower combined cost. And over a period of time, you also then work with your partner as they get into things like retail media. Rather than being scared of retail media, rather than thinking this is, one more way where my retailer is taking away my margin, you actually treat it as an opportunity to have a full stack conversion engine. You treat retail media like a properly brand building yet converting piece of work. You actually experiment specifically on that. You build the entire IDA loop in that 15, 20, 30 seconds. You optimize the hell out of it. Now suddenly you've got a win-win situation where your conversion rates are so much higher. I mean, just to illustrate, if you are doing buying media on on Google and then taking people to Amazon, because there are multiple clicks, the ROI of that and the conversion of that is typically much lower than buying media directly on Amazon, where from past experience, my return on investment could be 5-10 times higher, even though my cost per impression may be 3-4 times higher as well, because my conversion is 20-25 times better through that whole chain. So if you can do that with your Walmart, or you can do that with your Tesco over a period of time, and a significant part of your business goes into that retail media with your customer, yes, your customer will make more money. Yes, your media partner will have less allocation of spend, but overall, your business will become much more data driven, and you will only spend the media when you're getting sales, right? And that whole RGM loop gets fixed into that IDA loop, and it can all be automated, and your retailer will also be able to see it. So I think the pathway is clear, and I think that is what is going to happen. Retailers have a bigger imperative than CPG companies. Typically, retailers have a 4 to 6 to 8% EBIT margin. FMCG companies have a 20% EBIT margin. Who has more interest in efficiency? Who has more interest in driving, better outcomes with advertising and marketing spend? Of course, it's the retailer. So if you can harness that energy that the retailer brings to bring efficiency and conversion, and you can bring insights, and you can be an early partner on retail media, you can really get a disproportionate advantage.
So, interestingly, retail media has been a little bit of a black box as operated by retailers today, as in you don't always get to know what is performing well as an independent evaluation. So that's something that I think collaboration will perhaps have to break. And maybe the manufacturers, the suppliers have to bring something to the party. One interesting thing is I don't know how much the D2C websites are active for every supplier. I think some suppliers do well there and attract quite a bit of traffic into D2C so that you can use it as your data and honeypot supply, but not everybody. So I think activate that channel more in order to understand your consumer one-to-one. Use that to refine your RGM loop and then bring it back to the mainstream retail. That's sort of your formula?
Yeah, I mean, I have a framework for a term that I've constructed. The term is called a zine, XCME. So, and I'll just bring it back to the question that you asked. So what is a zine? Like a gene is an expression of biological material that moves through generations. A meme is an idea that moves through the substrate of ideas, let's say. A zine is actually a useful invention. So what this means is that, for example, thousands of years ago, some human being somewhere saw a round stone and realized that it rolls. And someone had the bright idea of calling it a wheel. and put it on a cart. So now that became a zine. So what is a zine? It's the fact that someone took a useful invention and embedded it into a product or into an idea. So now this wheel has traveled through thousand generations. And today, when you sit down in your car and you turn the steering wheel or the wheels turn, it's that same invention that this person had, whatever thousands of years ago, that same zine that has traveled through product after product, idea after idea, and got better and better over a period of time. And then other things got layered on top of it, and now you have a car. So one of the things that is very important in for every business and also for RGM is the rate of accumulating zines and embedding them into your business. The rate of getting learnings and putting them back in your business, and then doing more experiments and getting more learnings. The faster you do this, the more you are going to know about your business, the more experiments are going to give you more results, and the better your performance is going to be. And this is a universal law. So you should, as a company, as an individual, be focused on how many zines you are generating, how many useful experiments you have generated, which have embedded learnings back into the business, which then become a baseline on which further work is done. Now, bringing this back to your point, you need to have some mechanism of generating the maximum number of zines in the minimum possible time. A D2C website, even if it's not selling a lot, is a great way to do this because it is totally in your control. You can do as many experiments for as little cost as you. So even if you don't want it strategically, it's the wrong thing to do. You still, it costs too much, whatever. You still want that website for just this reason because you can build those learnings that you can take everywhere else. If you don't have a D2C website, that's fine. You need to find what is the area in which you're going to, what is your sandpen, what is your play box, where are you going to create all of these ideas? And then who in your team are you going to task? If you created 5 ideas that were tested last month, next month you want to test 50. Who can you task to put 50 ideas? And the month after that, 100 ideas, and get those ideas tested, results back into the business. And now there's a torrent of knowledge coming to your retailer, which is helping you optimize your RGM because you know what works better. And over a period of time, with 1% improvement every day, over a year, you can make a dramatic level of improvement. And the same thing happens in this case also. So it's not about specifically D2C alone. It's about finding some place where, or some places where you can experiment at high pace because you have control and you have end-to-end visibility of the data, which your AI can absorb and run.
The idea, Addy, I think I never connected the TikToks and the Facebooks in the way your mental model brought it together from a click perspective. But now it makes so much sense, right? I mean, like I remember in our first episode, we said we'll get to the consumer. So hold on to the thought. But I'm glad you brought that up in with such nuance, because my contest with what a lot of capabilities that we have today, be it even on price elasticity or how we measure uplift or incrementality, it doesn't have any consumer perspective on it, right? So we may be pretty much training the consumer to buy when on deal, right? So yes, the ROI is good, but the household or the consumer would have bought it anyway. Now we've just given them extra pound or extra dollar to subsidize that volume. So truly, right, what is the role of that promotion, right? How are we driving incrementality? And I've always claimed the fact that the consumers don't live in an org chart, right? I mean, like they move fluidly, right? I mean, like they actually collapse the PNL, right? I mean, like whereas organizationally we are structured around marketing, we're structured around shopper, consumer. And I feel, as Amazon was growing, there was almost this black spot in the measurement ecosystem, right? Because our syndicated data could only focus on the retail POS that got, and online was getting missed. And that was, by the way, where most of the growth was coming from. And fast forward, while a lot of has changed, but practically nothing has changed. Now you have the black, spot or the dark spots of TikToks, the Facebooks, where I feel they are probably the biggest growth drivers, but the measurements and the ecosystem doesn't exist. So time permitting, maybe we'll come and address the question, but I want us to go back to part of that question that Dipita asked, right? I mean, which was, how do you, is it the incremental use of AI to drive efficiency? Or is it more transformative, right? On how we think, where the outcomes and how we do that work changes, right? I mean, and sometimes I feel that becomes you've talked about rapid experimentation, right? And I feel sometimes leaders are very apprehensive about their own readiness to even think about transformation, right? Using AI. They are very happy to let the IT or the technology teams try it out. I know you refer to it. They will come and do it for you, rather than me, trying to own in how I could use and change. So any reflections, any frameworks on that you can share?
Yeah, sure. In every business, I have a framework which is called the AI implementation ladder. Where this framework starts is just first an understanding of what AI actually is. So all that AI is doing is predicting the next item in a series. So if you say the quick brown fox jumped, and then you ask an AI, it's going to say over the lazy dog. Why does it say that? Because it has read the entirety of the internet and it knows that the most likely answer is that. So it's making a prediction. You can have AI transformation only where there is a prediction challenge to be solved. So if you use AI to solve a prediction challenge, solving that challenge can make things better. There is a use case for using AI. So in every use case where you're thinking about using AI, you need to think about what is the prediction challenge that this AI is solving, which if solved would be better. Now, organizations are structured in a, if you think of an organization like a black box, right? And I'm going to share a little thing here. You can see it here. So let's say an organization is a black box. At the top, the organization has hopefully one strategy. Linked to the strategy are a bunch of jobs. So for a large company, take an example of a company like Tesla. So the strategy when this started at some point was that we are going to help make the world a better place by getting rid of petrol cars and help climate change by making all cars electric. Then jobs for a company like that would have been, oh, I'm going to produce a car or an after sales service or R&D or whatever, big things. Then you have tasks. Each job ends up having 10, 15, 20 tasks. And then each task tends to have 20, 30, 40 workflows. So an organization is like a black box with a strategy, jobs, tasks, workflows. On one side, you have inputs that come in, and on the other side, you have outputs that go on. And the way the organization converts input to outputs is by taking them through this ladder. So now the question is how you can use AI. Most companies start at the bottom. They start with workflows. So I have a workflow which is, was this promo executed properly in the store? I can have an AI that is testing just that one workflow. And maybe the prediction challenge it is solving there is what is the probability that the promo will be executed correctly in that store, in that retailer at that particular point of time. And based upon that, you can have some actions. But to really make a big difference for the company, you have to do many, many, many workflows. That means you require now many, many, many different AI tools. Now suddenly you have 50 tools, 100 tools, 1,000 tools. Now all these tools need to talk to each other. Now people need to understand what these tools are doing. Now it becomes very complicated. And a lot of companies are actually here at the moment. And the reason they are here is because the easiest thing to solve with an AI tool is a simple one-step workflow. Now, supposing there were 5 workflows in a task and you have 5 AIs or one AI that is solving all 5, actually, then you can automate the task itself. So it's a cascading thing. If you automate one task, you can get rid of a bunch of workflows. If you automate one job, you can get rid of maybe 10 tasks and 200 workflows. So where the higher up in this you use AI to solve, you actually have a material impact on your organization. Let me give you an example of solving a task at the strategy level, what that does to an organization. Think about a company like Amazon. Today, Amazon's shopping model is shop, then ship. First you buy, and then it ships. Amazon has a return rate on things like fashion, very high return rate. I don't know what it is, 40, 50%, but as a company, maybe 20%. So supposing you set yourself a prediction challenge, and the prediction challenge is, can I predict to an 80% accuracy level what each user wants to buy? If I could do that, if I could solve that prediction challenge using AI, as Amazon, I could move my model to a ship then shop model, which is, I know Tarun, he is my customer on Amazon. I will send him what my AI thinks is right for him. And if he doesn't like it, he can return it. If I get that accuracy level to 80%, now my costs are the same because anyway, Tarun was returning 20%. Now, supposing I did that, think of the implications on the jobs, tasks, and workflows. Now I don't need Amazon to be a website. It can just be a chatbot because it knows what I want. I don't have to browse as a user. Now I don't need warehouses which are close to the center of the city. I can put them far away and reduce my warehousing cost. Now I don't need so many warehouses because I can bundle things much better. Now my cost of delivery goes down and my entire delivery network changes. So one AI prediction challenge solved at the top of the pyramid can dramatically impact things elsewhere. So now let's apply this for RGM. So at the most basic level, you can currently companies are doing this. You're predicting workflows. Was this promo correctly executed? Was the pricing actually adhered to? Those kinds of things. If you move one level above to tasks, you can now start predicting. You'll change your prediction challenge to, will this promo be profitable and achieve my objective before it runs? If I do that, then maybe a lot of workflows can actually go away. But then move it one level higher. Can I use an AI to predict what is the true profit of the next $1 or £1 of spend that I am doing? If I can actually use an AI to predict that, that can actually take away a lot of things I do in RGM today, because rather than RGM being reactive, RGM now becomes proactive. So rather than looking at my past spend, I'm optimizing my future spend. And I'm saying I'll spend the next variable dollar, I will spend at the place where it gives me the highest return being calculated as highest ratio of net sales and net profit. And based on that, I make dynamic decisions on pricing and promotion. And this is what airline companies do, for example. So the question for every business is really how you can move up this pyramid, what prediction challenges you can solve using AI, which actually automate large swaths of the work for RGM. If we fast forward 5, 10, 15 years, I foresee a world where the company, let's say you're in, I don't know, PepsiCo, and you are brand Pepsi. The brand has an agent and there is a consumer, and the two have a one-to-one relationship with the intermediary as a customer. And the brand is tailoring the offer to that customer in real time because the brand has a one-to-one relationship with the customer over a period of time. There's no sales, there's no marketing. It's all communication of one to many. And the brand can have one agent eventually, which is focused only on Tarun's purchases, right? And that can show up on a Teams call like this. And you could be talking to Pepsi at the same time as we're having a conversation with each other. And you don't even know whether it's human or it's an agent, but it can give you an offer if you have the right discussion with it. So now, how does RGM work in that kind of work?
Well, you definitely blown away my mind. I will have to, take some time to digest it. But I really loved, your framework, right? Because I've always struggled, as I said, right? I mean, having spoken with leaders to push, nudge, and sometimes, right? I mean, it comes down to where their philosophical beliefs are, right? I mean, some leaders are very shy of technology because they don't understand it. They think of this as a cost of doing business. And I see a clear segregation between technology and the business, where business does their strategy and their execution, their marketing, their trade, and they let the technology teams run it operate, right, from a billing perspective. But truly, like in the future, the paradigm has to shift, right? I mean, and one, of course, the synergy between what technology does is it can have paramount impact. But to your point, right, what is the prediction challenge that we are solving? And if organizations can be clear and tying back to, right, how many experiments can I run? Then can I get better, smarter, more accurate? And therefore, then it becomes a virtuous engine. I mean, that's very good advice.
And you can also map out your part of the organization. What are the jobs? What are the tasks? What are the work? If you want to start at the workflows, because it's the least disruptive and easiest place to start, then figure out which are the ones which have the highest impact and the lowest difficulty, and start with those. But if you are lucky enough to be able to find a prediction challenge at the task or jobs level, then you can create an AI agent that can automate a huge part of your business.
No, absolutely. That is definitely very good advice. And, I'm sure both inspirational as well as transformative at the same time. I know we are starting to get close to our time, but again, it was a pleasure. Addy, as always, you come up with such, you know, good nuggets of advice, and the way you think, it cuts through some of the complexity and gets to the heart of the problem in very practical ways of actually going and solving for it. So again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Any last thoughts from you, Dipita?
Yeah, I was just thinking that we talked about RGM transformation. We started talking about it, but Adi clearly showed that it is really a business transformation of which RGM is a part. And, one doesn't exist without the other. Because if we transform RGM and the business stays exactly where it is, it's meaningless. So that's a great thought to take away as we do our future work. I'm also really intrigued by the challenge of convincing businesses that it is something worth going into and it's something worth thinking about before jumping in, but don't just tip your toe into the water. I mean, it's too late for that. I feel like, there's just too much out there. And the real intrigue is, what is the relative cost if I really want to take all my workflows and put little mini agents to do all of that and the next layer, etc. What is the cost that I'm looking at today? Is that going to go down by Murphy's Law in 5 years and become almost nothing? And therefore, how do they start thinking about the ROI? So, so much you've given us to think about, Addy. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. On this point that you made about cost, I think that's a very, very important point. In fact, I had a keynote speech at there was a Google event in Mountain View, which is called the Future of AI. And last week I had a keynote speech on exactly this. The point I made there, and I'll make here also, is that as you go, first of all, when we design organizations or companies, you're not designing for the organization of today or the world of today. You're designing for the world 1 year out, or 2 years out, or 5 years out, or 6 months out these days. So you need to anticipate what technologies and what will be happening 6 months to 12 months at least out when you are implementing anything in your organization. 6 to 12 months out, your cost of compute, the cost of running parallel agents that do all of these things is going to get less and less and less. 3 years out, compared to today's cost, it's going to be a fraction. It'll be 100th or tenth of the cost of today. So what do you do in a world where the cost of compute is going down towards zero? The cost of experimentation and the cost of distribution is going down towards zero also. but in a world where every small company has access to this. So equal access as you. So now there is the imperative of actually planning for that world where AI cost is not going to be the most significant thing relative to the benefits you get from it. You should take that as given. I also would advise companies. I know there's a lot of discussion about show me the P&L, show me where AI has actually saved money. I'd say forget about what it has done for anybody else. If you are a company, set yourself a target that says you're going to reduce 30% of your fixed cost, 20% of your variable RGM expense in the next 6 months by using AI. Now the question is how you use AI to achieve that. And all the technologies already are there.
And it goes back to, right, while a lot of it has changed fundamentally in some ways, nothing much, right? Because it all starts with intent and design, right? To your point, right? I mean, I talked about TikTok, Facebook, all the fragmented ways a P&L could go as spend. Now, one could go and design a better measurement system, but one could fundamentally redesign and collapse the clicks, right? I mean, so it's the intent with what you design with can have a profound impact, to your point, right? I mean, is it the job that we are redesigning, or is it the automation of the workflow? And to your point, right? I mean, like we see, we don't have to debate this, but a lot of companies, because that is the closest truth to where they can wrap their heads and minds, that's where they start. And then no doubt, right? I mean, like it was designed to fail, or the maximum that could happen would have been some efficiency, right? I mean, not effectiveness designing. And therefore you start questioning the ROI, whereas it was designed to fail to begin with, to have big impact.
Yeah, I'm conscious we are at time, but I can't resist this one. The other thing that AI does and technology does is it really changes how you think about fragmentation and complexity. So let me explain what I mean. Typically, if you have customers, you'll have them in a long tail, or even SKUs, you'll have them in a long tail. And you'll have a 60-40 or 80-20 rule that says 40% of effort is 60%, 40% of keywords is 60% of traffic. And therefore, I'm going to focus on the 40% of keywords because my effort is finite and I need to focus on high impact things. But now guess what? That 40% is 60%, but actually 60% long tail is also 40%. Now, if you use AI to automate that, you treat it the same way. Now it's one thing, one AI task, which has 40% of the value. This 40% becomes the number one thing if you put it back on the other side of the graph. So you can use AI to wrap up your long tail and make it one task. And that becomes your biggest growth task with the lowest level of competition where nobody's looking at. So in the world of, if you're buying keywords, those are the cheapest keywords, but cumulatively they have the highest weight. And you have only one task that you're running on them, which is AI. So it may be fragmented, but the AI is managing the fragmentation. It's not fragmented as far as you are concerned. Also in RGM, it is this little things that you can automate together in one task, which actually cumulatively can make the biggest area. But individually, they are so small that maybe your partner on the other side who's negotiating with you does not even look at them because they are so small.
Awesome.
I think that's a great place to leave it. And until next time, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Thank you, Ali. It was awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of this episode of the Growth Agenda. I hope you enjoyed it. We hope the conversation gave you real fresh perspective on how to think about growth as a strategy, as a continuous data-driven and decision-led journey as well. At Asper, we believe growth comes from embedding intelligence directly into commercial decisions, not just analyzing outcomes, but actively shaping them.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, share, and stay tuned for our next conversation, where we will continue to explore the future of RGM. And if you'd like to learn more about how Asper is helping CPG leaders unlock value across pricing, promotions, assortment, and trade, visit us at asper.ai. Until next time, keep driving growth.